family. Some people don't like using the word family, and I don't remember why, but I realized the preference is to use relative. So I will say both. One for people who have not come into the knowledge of why not using family, and the other peace and love to my relatives out there for those who have come into some knowledge of why to use relative. But you cannot please all the people all the time, and that's probably not how that goes. But I'm not going to be very vocal. I am just going to be going through a little more of my process of research on Wenepoykin, which I started out earlier, where I read from a specific website regarding this youngest son of the, let's see here, we'll see, it should be here, youngest son of Nanapashemet and Squaw Sachem. And you can go so many places when you're doing research. And this is really not considered real research. It is the beginning stages of looking um, at a specific, what would we say, a specific uh, goal, a specific person of interest, a specific interest, and seeing how much I can find out before I go to the library, let's say, so that I'm warmer, much more warm than just going in with a name or something I heard one person say. This is a consensus of what I can find online, so that when I start looking at more information, I would have that. So I'm going to start here because, and sometimes, like if I see Pinterest, I don't want to go into Pinterest, and maybe at some point I might start going into Pinterest. But what I noticed is, I believe that, I know that this is his father's name according to that article. And so I did have this. I'm going to try to open it up. And I saw this earlier where it's saying, here lies the body of, and then I can see here, maybe that's what this is about, Nana, but it doesn't look like that now. Nanapashemet, that doesn't look like Nanapashemet. So I don't know. I don't know if this is exactly his grave. However, I remember that these are the founders of Lynn, Massachusetts, which is the area that his family was in. So this should be, I'm going to open this up. This should be Squaw. And I don't know if PASSACONAWAY would be also the father's name. So let me try to make this out. Something of the something something Whams died 18, maybe 88 or 68, 1868. Something the traditional blank the grave by something in 1910. And this looks like a harmonica, maybe a Indian, what you call a dream catcher. So some shells, some things that I guess people have visited and put out there. Cape Ann. I did not see that. I'm gonna see if I can go into that a little bit. Oh, okay. That's this. Okay. So I had opened that already. So let's see how much of this. I'm gonna read a little of this. It's kind of long, and I have to be a little bit careful about reading. I noticed that unless it's like pictures, so maybe I read a little, do some other things a little, and see if that might make it a little more interesting. Because I want to know, read until I know who Passaconaway is. Squaw, Sachem, and PASSACONAWAY. The Sachem PASSACONAWAY's name, PAPPISECONEWA, meant child of the bear, referring to his kin group, making him a natural born protector of his people, a role he reluctantly but for a time successfully undertook during the colonial period. Passaconaway is reported to have been nearly 7 feet tall, a charismatic magician and healer who answered a call to political leadership. Before he became a grand sachem, Passaconawa was a noted POWWAB, witch or sorcerer, as well as a powwow, shaman, a powerful combination. In his account of 1637, Thomas Morton describes entertainments in which Passaconaway conjured physical feats such as juggling, appearing to swim underwater in impossible distance, and making ice in summer, complete with obscuring smoke and loud claps, common distractors in a magician's repertoire. I'm going to stop there for a moment. So I still don't see, I am assuming that this is her husband, but I still don't know if he's the father of, if he's the same person as this person, Nanapashemet, who is the father of Wenepoykin, who we are looking at. So while I'm here, and this is the way I do it, I am going to actually look up Sagamore George because these are the names that the English gave him. And I noticed that you find the more you look at the different names and look into these stories, the more you can see some consistencies or discrepancies. So, meaning that if I look up Sagamore George, I may find totally different stories that could possibly lead to a confirmation that yes, this is the same person, or it may lead to that that's not the truth. So, okay, going to look at that right quick. Sagamore doesn't come up yet. Oh, there's a lake. There he is. Sagamore George. Okay. See what I'm saying? Sagamore George. There were other names that I found somewhere else. Let me check back. Okay, so there were other names like George No-Nos, I believe it was. Let's see if I do images. Do we see anything that resembles? Obviously, Sagamore, the hotel is okay. Wait. No, it's not bringing up anything. So what about Sagamore? I shouldn't. I should write it George, the Indian. See what I'm saying? Uh-oh. Okay. Well, I didn't mean to do that. And well, I remember that one of his names was Marsh, George Marsh. I'm gonna find that and show that also. Right. So see how you can dig a little bit, and you might Native American deeds. It is an extraordinary story about those Native Americans who long ago, by the arrival of first members of the Massachusetts Bay Colony at, so we definitely know this is him, but you see what it says on there. I'm gonna look at that again. Black William selling Nanhat to Thomas. Okay, okay. So Black William, huh? Well, let me go back. These are the Indians that were supposedly, look at this, man. Never hear anything. Uh-oh. I'm sick of this. That clearly looks like the same person on the other painting. Y'all know this is my obsession right here. Look at that. I like to look around in the background. The March of Standish. The March of milestones. Let me see something. Okay, that's not what I want to be doing. I was actually trying to see where I saw the name that had Marsh in it. So now we have a name Black William. So that was that one Indian. Now I'm gonna go back and okay, that's what I want to see. I'm sure this is supposed to be like the same person. So, yeah, Black William. Oh, for a suit of clothes, 1630. Now I could have sworn that I read something about. Hold it, here we go. Let's see. I could have sworn that I read something about Nahat here. He married the daughter of Poquanum, Paquanum, Paquanum, Paquanum. I'm gonna think that that's why we get these names. The name Quan. I've noticed that name in our communities. So he married the daughter of Paquanum, who was a sub-sachem in the area known as Nahant. Okay, maybe that's. Let's find out. Let's see. I want to know what his Indian name was. I think that I was right, probably. Let's see if I can. Okay, let me see how long this is. Oh, that seems short, but cause okay. What are you looking at? Is that taping? Let me check to see if anybody's looking. Okay. You know what? You don't even. It is so sickening. The deed of Marblehead in the Indian court held that Natick, which is the same area, Awaton of Punkapog, aged about 70, the native ruler of that town of praying Indians, and an old and faithful friend of the English, stated under oath that he knew that George with no nose, and we know that George with no nose from earlier is Wenepoykin, was Sagamore of the Marblehead territory. Okay, I'm gonna make this bigger. I don't want to. I'm gonna let me just do a couple of things right quick. Oh wow. Oh maybe I was. Oh, I came into this in the middle of something. You know what? This is gonna be good here. The Indian land titles of Essex County, Massachusetts. Interesting. Okay, so now I think if I refresh it, I'll be back. Okay. The conveyance of Nahat. So, which is the father of George No Nose, who is Wenepoykin's, uh, which is Wenepoykin's. This Paquanum is Paquanum is the father of his wife. That's his father-in-law. Was he then? I don't know. Okay, so Panak Paquanum, Sachem of Nahat, had a complexion much darker than the other Indians of that locality, and for that reason was called Black Will. He was also known as Duke William. In or before the year 1632, he conveyed. Oh, you know what? See, I'm supposed to be doing this so I can make it bigger. So I'm unable to expand my screen. Well, maybe if I do this, that'll work. I'll go back to it. Okay, so the only thing about doing that is it's not letting me move over. So that's not going to work. I hope that anybody that watches me it takes that doesn't that is like in computer illiterate would benefit. So patience, 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 my dear. All right, so what I have to do is I'm just going to do a few. Eventually, I know I have to. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to still. I'll copy a couple of pages. So there's no way I'm going to read everything. Great. I'm not going to copy those right now. It's okay. I don't think I'll be able to read them. I'll just do one. Just I don't have my readers on either. That's not helping. All right, and then let's see. Hopefully this is not long, and I'll read that, and then I'll stop. I also want to get back to the other stuff that I was looking at. That was what was that? It's another way of the Department of Interior. And then I noticed that Dane Calloway is his a part of his title is ethnography. Ethnographist, I believe. Let's see how far down this will go. All right, so that's where. What does it matter if something? That's why I'm gonna stop anyway. So I'm going. What does it matter if? Let me just. I won't stop at what I last copied, but I am going to take a closer look at these seals, just cause. Four kinds of impressions used upon the wax seal of the deed of Marblehead. So we're gonna see who Marblehead is in reference to these, cause I'm not sure I did that. I just did that because I wanted to get into here faster. So we're gonna start with this. So this appears to be. I don't see anything on there, but that appears to be Dark William. Black Will. The March of Mines, Standish. Oh, no, there's no way to see that. Okay, before I read that, I know that I'm going down this path. The March of Mines, Standish. And then after that, seriously, I'm going to read the March of Mines, Standish. Oh, just right here alone. After 3 days' march, he came to an Indian encampment, pitched on the edge of a meadow between the sea and the forest. Women at work by the tents, and the warriors, horrid with war paint, seated about a fire and smoking and talking together, who, when they saw from afar the sudden approach of the white men, saw the flash of the sun of a breastplate and saber and musket, straightway leaped to their feet, and two from among them advancing came to parley with Standish and offer him furs as a present. Friendship was in their looks, but in their hearts there was hatred. Braves of the tribe were these, and brothers gigantic in stature, huge of Goliath of Gath, or the terrible Og, king of Bashan, one of Peck's name, and the other was called Watamat. Round their necks were suspended their knives in scabbards of wampum, two-edged trenchant knives with points as sharp as needle. Other arms had they none, for they were cunning and crafty. Welcome English, they said, these words they had learned from the traders, touching at times on the coast to barter and chaffer for peltries. Then, in their native tongue, they began to parley with Standish. Through his guide and interpreter, Habermas, friend of the white man, begging for blankets and knives, but mostly for muskets and powder, kept by the white men, they said, concealed with the plague in his cellars, ready to be let loose and destroy his brother, the red man. But when Standish refused and he said he would give them the Bible, suddenly changed their tone. They began to boast and bluster. All right, Watawamat. I think Watawamat. I thought I also saw Watawamat for Wenepoykin. I'm pretty sure I did. Oh, not Watamanat. It was this Winnepurkit. Okay. All right. So now I am going to read this and shut it down. I just wanted to go back over these pictures. That's Black William Aquanum. And I believe that this is the same just because of the way they have these feathers. And I just kind of think that. All right. So, really quickly, I already had read this, but I'm going to do this. The conveyance of Nahat. Paquanum, Sachem of Nahat, had a complexion much darker than the other Indians of that locality, and for that reason was called Black Will. He was also known as Duke William. In or before the year 1632, he conveyed the peninsula of Nahat for a suit of clothes to Thomas Dexter, who lived near the ironworks of Sagas River. He was known as Farmer Dexter. There is no record of any deed in confirmation of this sale, and most that is known about it is contained in the affidavits on file in the office of the Clerk of Courts at Salem. In a suit at law brought by Mr. Dexter against the town of Lynn for trespass in feeding cattle and building houses on Nahat. This was in the year 1657. So what people was just trespassing, building houses on the land he has no record of buying for a suit. These are some of the sources. Christopher Lindsay disposed as follows. This I, Christopher Linfy, do telleth that Thomas Dexter brought Nahat of Black Will or Duke William and employed me to fence part of it when I lewd with Thomas Dexter. Okay, so that is something that was written later. This is a copy of an oath taken before me. Memoranda. Linfey denied in court that he was ever present at any bargain. So hold on. You know what? I'm not. I, so this Linfey denied he was ever present at any bargain. So what he attested to is that he fenced it off based on what Thomas Dexter had told him. This is a copy of an oath taken before me from John Fun. Oh no, that would be high. Let's see. This I, Christopher Linfey, testified that he bought and employed me to fence it off. So he testifies that he bought it in that, and then over here he denies that he was ever present for it. Linfey denied in court that he was ever present at any bargain. Winter William disposed as follows. The testimony, and if you notice the testimony, like this right here, that looks like a F, you see that in Mississippi on like the census reports. So this that appears to be a F is a S. I noticed that. Yep, for sure. The testimony of William Winter, maybe some people knew that. I did not. I knew it because I saw that in Mississippi, and I'm like, that looked like an F. Okay, the testimony of William Winter, age 73 years or thereabouts, testifieth that Black Will or Duke William, so-called, came to my house, which was 2 or 3 miles from Nahat. Then, when Thomas Dexter had bought Nahat of him for a suit of clothes. Yeah, that looked like an F, but it do kind of look like, no, it's an F. For a foot of clothes. The fade. The Sade Black, the what? Oh, the paid? Anyway, I don't know. The something Black Will asked me what I would give him for the land my house stood upon. I wonder if that's supposed to be. Then said Black Will asked me what I would give him for the land my house was on, it being his land and his father's wigwam stood thereabouts. What's a wigwam? James Sagamore and John and the Sagamo of Agawami and Duismore, and George Sagamore being a youth. George Sagamore, that is, according to what I've seen so far, that would be Wenepoykin. Being a youth was present, all of them acknowledged. Paquanum was always friendly to the English, and his end was sad as well as tragical. He had found at Richmond's Isle near Portland, Maine by a party. He was found at Richmond's Isle near Portland, Maine by a party who were in search of pirates, and they charged him with the murder of Walter Bagnall, who had been killed by Indians a year or two before. He was undoubtedly guiltless of the crime. But one Indian was the same as any other Indian, and he was hanged. He had several children, a yet, who married Wenepoykin, Quickusen, who also who was also called Captain Tom or Thomas Paquanam, Paquanam, and lived at Wamsit near Pawtucket Falls, and a daughter who married Sagamore George. Now we know that Ahayet, Ahawayet. We know that Ahawayet, who married Wenepoykin, is the daughter who married Sagamore George, because Wenepoykin and Sagamore George are the same person, according to the other stories. Black will to be the right owner of the land my house stood on in Sagamore Hill. Okay, we read that. This is a copy of a note. Okay. All right. Let's see. Okay, let's just see if we can read this. Any of this? No. No. And what is it anyway? All right. This is some years later. I'm reading this because George with no nose is also Sagamore George, is who is also Wenepoykin. The deed of Marblehead. In the Indian court held at Natick, August 15th, 1672, a Houghton of Punkapog, aged about 70, the native ruler of that town of praying Indians and an old and faithful friend of the English, stated under oath that he knew that George with no nose was Sagamore of the Marblehead territory, and as such, according to the ancient custom of the Indians, he was the chief proprietor. And James Quanapacomet, 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 James Quanapacomet was a near kinsman to George with no nose and interested in the territory. On the same day, in the same court, George with no nose and his kinswoman, Joan Quanapaquet, appeared and agreed and declared that all the right of the Sagamore to the territory should belong to James to dispose of, and George with no nose agreed to join with James in a deed of it, providing he had one half of the consideration. June 10th, that's very open. Like, what is half of the consideration? What, I mean, I guess they don't speak here about what the. Oh, okay, I get it. That George with no nose agreed to join with James in a deed of it, providing he, meaning George with no nose, aka Sagamore George, aka Wenepoykin, providing he, Wenepoykin, would have one half of the land that's being considered. June 10th, 1681, Way Band and Payam Bauhau, Indians each aged about 77, appeared before Daniel Gookin, Sr., an assistant, and under oath narrated the events stated in the preceding paragraph. That might be it. Let's see. All the right of the Sagamore to the territory should. Okay. Oh, then I have the sources. The first source came from Staunton, Massachusetts. What is that? A book? Oh, the second source here. Old Ahatan of Pakuna, age about 70. Okay, this is the whole statement read earlier. You get it? I guess they're just showing how it was actually written. Okay, let's see how much more I got. That's it. That's it. Yep, that's it. The buttons is last. Okay, so let me read it. Later, James and some other Indians made a claim to the territory of Marblehead, and a meeting of the commoners and proprietors of the town was held July 14, 1684, to consider the matter. It was agreed that a committee be appointed to investigate the claim. This committee consisted of Moses Maverick, John Devereux, Captain Samuel Ward, Thaddeus Ridden, William Bill, Thomas Pittman, Richard Reed, and Nathaniel Walton, together with the select men of the town. It was also voted that in case the committee reported that any part of the claim was valid, Captain Ward and Mr. Devereux be authorized to settle with the Indians and obtain a deed from them. At the same meeting, it was also voted that whatever was paid to the Indians for their deed and the necessary expenses of the service of the committee. Okay. At the same meeting, it was also voted that whatever was paid to the Indians for their deed and the necessary expenses of the service of the committee would be repaid to them. All of these guys going to get together. All of these guys, all of these immigrants, people migrating here are getting together to consider the matter of James and some other Indians um, who are who should have ownership of this territory, Marblehead. I just almost can't wait to see what happened after that. Although I guess we know. Peace and love, y'all. Ty Hawk, are you here? I just let me do this. Not yet. Are you here? I don't know. I've been going on and on. It's been 16 minutes. Well, just in case you're here, I want to thank you for being here. And I want to thank you for making a comment in the chat, and that is encouraging. I am I'm just wanting to I'm doing this journey. I'm doing it. And I'm doing it as I am able. I can't get to the libraries. Uh, and when I go to the libraries, I want to have some knowledge of what I'm looking for. And so this is what I'm trying to do. I'm actually trying to work at a pace for those people who are like just now saying, you know, I, this it's a possibility that what my grandmom said to me might be true, especially some of the older generations, people who are in their 60s and 70s now, 80s even now. I would love, I like many of the people in their 70s are getting Facebook pages in my family, and starting to get the phones, the smartphones. They can look at YouTubes. And I think that it is beneficial, even at those ages, of course, to provide information that they may even come up and say, I heard about that story. My grandfather said something about that. I'm looking forward to the continuance of this journey publicly. I'm looking forward to this being a benefit to our community, both the young and old. And I'm also hoping that, you know, the younger people, that they could benefit from my type of search. Some of the other informations and contents that are out there, they're you know, they moving at a really fast pace, maybe growing somewhat impatient, a little difficult to keep up with at times. So I'm hoping that I'm serving my community well. I'm gonna keep at it. Thank you, Ty Hawk 13. Peace and love, y'all.